Hello ladies and gentlemen, Top Hat Gaming Man here, and before we dive into today's video, I would just like to quickly apologise for the fact that I have not yet managed to get an in-depth video up this week. Quite frankly, I've just been too busy and run off my feet. As you can see, I've just moved into my house. I've had all that Christmas nonsense to deal with, like all of you lot, so bah humbug. Then on top of all of that, I've got a lot of university assignments to do this week as well. So unfortunately, just for this week, I've had to put YouTube on the back burner a little bit, which is rather unfortunate, I must say. Despite all of this though, I would like to continue to thank all of my lovely patrons for continuing to back this channel. And as my monthly thank you to all of them, I'm going to answer my monthly Patreon Q&A. Yeah! So, let me look on my phone and answer some of these bloody questions. First question from Audrey Sampson. What was the influence of the 2600, ColecoVision, Odyssey and Intellivision in Europe? That's quite a good question, I must say, Audrey. And an interesting one at that. I can't tell you the full influence, obviously, because this all happened way before I was born. So all I can really tell you about is the repercussions of that era, really. As I've probably blabbered on about on this channel many times before, throughout the mid-80s, microcomputers were extremely successful within this region. In terms of the Atari 2600, I believe they did very well too. They was actually in abundance as far as I'm aware. Like, I've always been able to find like Atari 2600 games around boot sales and stuff like that, and they've always been available for quite cheap. I know my parents, for example, they had an Atari 2600 in my house, as I found it in the loft when I was about 8 years old. They actually had the Atari 2600 before the Amstrad CPC 464 was in my household. So that would tell you that Atari and their bloody little machine had somewhat of an impact. And if I remember as well, I've heard my parents and grandparents also talking about playing tennis on their televisions. So by that they must obviously mean Pong consoles. So Pong systems were also popular here. In terms of the others, Odysseys, I've been collecting games for a long time, and I have to say, never come across an Odyssey in the UK. Although I think they were released. Again, ColecoVision, only ever came across one system here, and that's the one I procured myself. And the same goes for the Intellivision actually. Got an Intellivision too, and that's what I procured myself, but I do not recall anyone ever owning either of those two systems here, so I cannot say they probably done very well. The Intellivision can't have done well because I know the sales off the top of my head. I believe 3 million Intellivisions were sold worldwide across the whole planet, and when you think of Intellivision, you think of the United States, so I imagine most of those 3 million sold within the US, I would gather, although I could be mistaken. So out of those systems, the only one that really had an impact was the Atari VCS, which, interesting factoid for you, was also the highest selling games console in the UK as far as 1989. Again, that only happened though because people didn't give a crap about consoles at the time. People wanted to game on more sophisticated systems, microcomputers like the Commodores, the Amigas, the Amstrads, etc. People just wasn't that interested in the NES, I suppose. Okay, next question I have from Raymond Larrabee. People outside the UK are unable to detect a fake British accent unless it's Dick Van Dyke bad. Can you recall any games with fake UK accents? Yes, actually, one that jumps straight to mind is Breath of the Wild, a game I regularly laugh at on this channel because I quite frankly didn't enjoy it. I believe Princess Zelda in that game has a terrible fake British accent for some reason. Don't ask me why they couldn't just employ a real Brit to play Zelda instead of getting some fake Brit to put on an accent. Doesn't make much sense to me. It's not like, again, Brits aren't in abundance. There's bloody 70 million of us on this planet, so it's not exactly hard to find a Brit to voice a game, is it? I could have voiced Princess Zelda. Oh, hello, I'm Princess Zelda. Here's a Triforce for you. See, I would have been a much better Princess Zelda. Next up, let me look through my phone for more questions. Sorry about this. I will get to them. Okay, here we go. Next question from the Bit Vault. A few weeks back you did a video on the impending, I like the word impending, release of Secret of Mana's HD remake. With that in mind, what are your thoughts on HD remakes in general? Specifically, are they a good thing for their respective franchises, or are they simply yet another example of greedy corporations cashing in on older gamers' nostalgia? Okay, interesting question. It depends with the game, I suppose. Like, a lot of HD remakes are completely unnecessary. Like, only complete utter morons would have needed to rebuy GTA 5 on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One just a few months after it came out on the PS3 and 360. That's an example of an idiot's remake. Another one, The Last of Us. Morons bought that again just a few months after they'd already played it once and paid full retail value. Examples of good HD remakes. Here's one I bought, for example, only this week. I bought Okami on the PlayStation 4. Why did I decide to buy the HD remake of that game? Simply because of the game's art direction. You can play the game on the PlayStation 2 and on the Nintendo Wii and it looks bloody good. But sadly, it's not in HD. And because one of the main selling points of that game is specifically its great art direction, then it's worth playing it on superior hardware to see that art direction reach its full potential. So unless you're playing a game specifically for its art direction, then there's absolutely no bloody point of buying a HD remake. It's just moronic and just idiotic. So that's the answer to that question. Let's look further. Also, he asks, what are both the best and most disappointing HD remakes you have played? As I said, the best ones are the ones with the art directions, and the worst ones are the ones that are just unnecessary. Like Last of Us and GTA 5 looked absolutely fine on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. There was literally no reason for complete buffoons to purchase them twice. They look nearly the bloody same. Next question from David Mountford. As you have mentioned, you are more passionate about retro gaming than modern gaming. I was curious which establishments, either online or traditional shops, do you visit to procure games you wish to play? Well, to be honest, around here there is not a great deal of stores I can attend in order to obtain retro games. The only one really is the chain of shops called CEX. To be fair, I often procure many games from CEX because you know what's great about CEX? Most of their user base and customers, I suppose would be a better term, are complete idiots. They go in there just to buy modern games, so anything what's retro in there, well in my town at least and the next town along, anything they get in essentially becomes mine. Because no one else is interested in retro. So they can get in a load of cool Sega Saturn games and they can sit in their shop window for a good month. They're literally just waiting there until I go in and decide to pick them up myself. I can literally get them at my own leisure. Because I'm one of the only bloody people around here interested in retro games. When I say that, I'm the only person around here interested in playing retro games. There are hundreds of moronic resellers everywhere I look. Loads of the scum who need to buy retro games so they can afford their cigarettes, alcohol and scratch cards. So you've got loads of people around like that. But obviously they're not going to buy retro games in a retail shop, are they? Because that means they'd actually have to pay for the games rather than con an old lady in order to get them. Do you know what I'm saying? So yes, going to CEX and buying a game, they're not simply going to be able to resell it so they can buy some dog food for their Staffordshire Bull Terrier. It's just not going to happen, is it? So yes, that's my answer to that question. CEX is the main place I tend to go. So, next question from my Australian friend, Since Spacies. Who's going to be the next victim in the console wars between Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft? Can free console manufacturers continue to survive with PC gaming becoming more approachable than ever before? Quite an interesting question, but I don't feel that PC gaming is particularly a threat to console gaming, because console gaming on the whole, let's be honest, is what's the best way of putting it? Console gaming is more mainstream than PC gaming. Like today, PC gaming is mostly for geeks and nerds, isn't it? And geeks and nerds are in less abundance than normal generic idiots who spend all their time watching football, drinking beer and talking about sex. and obviously all their stupid little children as well. A lot of them aren't interested in consoles anymore, let alone PCs. The main threat, if anything, would attribute to eliminating consoles, it's going to be tablet gaming, mobile gaming, that sort of thing, rather than PCs. Like I see, it's very rare to get on a bus, a plane, a boat or anything these days and see a child actually playing with a DS or a Switch or a Vita. They're nearly always on a bloody phone or a tablet making bloody microtransactions. It's quite sad, to be fair, that people are now willing to settle for such lower quality games than what's actually available to them. But in regards to which of them I see fizzling out, if any was to fizzle out this time, it's obviously going to be Microsoft and the Xbox. Like, is there any point these days to the Xbox existing? Like, you can do pretty much everything on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. You can do the same things, but obviously the PlayStation 4 is more popular and got a much larger library of games. And most of the good games on the Xbox One are also available on the PS4 anyway. And most of them are on Steam too. So yes, the Xbox One, pretty pointless these days. So yes, I see Microsoft fizzling out maybe as a console manufacturer, maybe starting some sort of streaming service similar to Steam. Maybe Microsoft could do something where they implement some sort of app into smart televisions where you just buy a controller and download games. Maybe something like that will happen down the line. But yes, if I was to bet on someone falling out of the console market, it would be Microsoft at this stage. But who knows, really? And what else have we got? Since space is your other question. Also, when are you going to visit Japan, finally? Well, I would like to say this summer, if I could, but I don't know if it's likely at the moment, because at the moment I am a pitiful student teacher who just doesn't earn a wage. The only money I get is from this bloody YouTube shenanigans, because I'm a student at the moment, so I won't be receiving a proper wage for another 6 months. After that, I can consider Japan and other faraway lands such as that. Although, if I play my cards right, maybe I can make it to Japan this summer. Who knows? And last question from, questions from Minty Oblivion. Do you often have that thing that some memories are strongly connected with in certain games? Like when you play it and you have these clear memories of the year and month and even the day when you got it and played it the most, and then start to remember other things that happened on that period. Tell us some life stories related to specific games. Oh yes, Russia. When? So yes, obviously everyone knows I like to travel the world, and I've not got to Russia yet, unfortunately. I would quite frankly love to visit Russia, and apart from money, there is unfortunately one other barrier. After consulting various Russians I have met on my travels, some of them think that if I was to visit Russia, I may struggle there a little bit, because from what I've been told, not many people speak English in Russia, and obviously all the road signs and maps and everything are also in Russian, so I could be handicapped somewhat trying to explore the land. So I am slightly apprehensive about going to Russia simply for that reason. However, I suppose if I do eventually make it there, if I go, maybe I'll be okay if I just go to somewhere like St. Petersburg or Moscow or something like that. I suppose it would be pretty cool to see the Kremlin as well, and I'd also like to see the Soviet space program too, but I think that might be in Kazakhstan, not 100% sure. So yeah, I'd really like to see the Soviet space program, and I'd like to see the Kremlin, amongst other things. Tetris, yeah. Okay, and the rest of your question about associating memories and games. I suppose the strongest memories, you'd probably associate games and Christmas together, because I've always played many games on Christmas Day. A big one for me would be playing Donkey Kong Country. The year that came out, that was fantastic. Like, graphically, those silicon graphics were like nothing I've ever seen before. Like, such a beautiful game to play on something as basic as a Super Nintendo as well. Like, no one would have even thought something like that was even possible on a 16-bit platform at the time. The next big jump for me, and strong memory, I suppose, would be Mario 64 as well. Another fantastic, extremely memorable Christmas, because that game again, graphically, like with the camera angles and all that, it was like something I hadn't played before. That's the ones that really stand out to me. It was games with just huge wow factors to them. And finally, the third time I have been visually stunned by a game at Christmas was Shenmue. Now that game looked bloody ridiculous. It was the most realistic looking game I'd ever seen, and I'd say it was possibly another decade until I came across a game that looked as good as Shenmue. Like, I couldn't believe what I was bloody seeing. Shenmue, what a bloody great looking game. So yes, that's my memories really. I tie Christmas to fantastic games like those. And many more, I suppose. This year, on Christmas Day, I got into Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I must say I also have been having quite a lot of fun with, and certainly a lot better than Xenoblade X on the bloody Wii U. But yes, my lovely patrons, thank you for continuing to support me, and I hope you found my answers to your questions entertaining. If you would like to take part in these monthly Q&As, then you can donate as little as $1 a month to my Patreon fund. So yes, get donating and get questioning, and we can all get to know each other just that little bit more. So, what have you been playing this Christmas? And what have been your favourite Christmas gaming memories over the years? I'd be quite interested to find out. Cheerio!
Born in London in 86, a Sasho gent named Richard Parliament. He loves to wrestle, but he loves one more thing: handhelds round the world. He fights in his comments and he argues with fans. It's a problem no one understands. If there's two things he loves, it's gaming and handhelds round the world. Drinking fine wine, fighting fanboys, handhelds round the world.
Top Hat Gaming Man.